Hello everyone, my name is Confidence Ruben and today we are having an interview session concerning the National Sewing Championship 2025 Skill Up Nigeria, which is the third education vocational skills competition, entrepreneur promotion and talent hunt initiative. With me in the studio is Honorable Rosemary Ojochenemi Osikoya. She is the Executive Director of Ladi Memorial Foundation. Hello, ma'am.
Good morning.
Hope I
Thank you
did
for
not
having me
murder
here.
your name.
No, that's fine.
You're welcome.
Thank
So,
you.
how are you?
And a question I would like to ask you. Did you make
Okay.
your dress yourself?
Well, this is already made. This is already made. Okay, so back to you. Did you make yourself?
Interestingly, an 18-year-old who
Okay.
was the winner of the first edition
Okay.
of the sewing championship made
Wow.
this.
Wow.
And at that time, she was still a student in secondary school. She had just completed.
Okay, please don't tell me it's with needle and thread.
Well, a part of it will have to come with needle and thread.
Wow.
Because with all the other attachments,
Yes,
some
yes.
parts of it definitely has to come with needle and
Wow,
thread.
it really looks so good.
Thank
Looks
you.
So good. You're welcome.
Thank
So,
you.
all right, give us a brief introduction about yourself.
Okay, my name is Rosemary Ojochenemi. I am an educator.
Okay.
And of course, I'm an entrepreneur.
Okay.
And some people would like to say that I have been in public office, which is also true.
Oh, wow.
I have been privileged to serve as a commissioner for education in my home state, which is Kogi. I've also been in environments, yes. So I've had a lot to do with different sectors at different times. And basically, a lot of what we're doing now is we are advocating and nurturing people to become productive members of their community.
Exactly.
And a lot of that goes into the domain of occupational skills.
Okay.
And you find occupational skills in every sector that has to do with our life. It could be in housing, it could be in health, agriculture, as you have them there.
Okay.
But I think addressing the question of productivity, economic development, and individual personal development as well takes us back to why every one of us needs to do what I am doing right now.
Okay, and that's what we are yet to know what you're doing right now as we, move further in the interview session. Now, talking about being self-reliant, I think it's very pertinent for every individual, no matter your gender, your age, to be, at least to an extent, to be self-reliant. But then you see these days, the generation of these days, they are just, after going to school, the next thing is they're looking for a white-collar job. You don't ask yourself, like, what other skills can I acquire in order to, even if you have a white collar job, you need something else to be doing, like a skill to, have probably not just focused on one source of income. But then you hear them say that, it is going to be stressful, it's going to be that and all that. But thank God you are here. At least you give us an insight when it comes to capacity building and also becoming self-reliant, self-sufficient, no matter your gender, no matter your age. Now, you are the executive director of an NGO called Ladi Memorial Foundation. Tell us about it. How did it start? What challenges have you encountered so far, and how were you able to surpass these challenges?
Interestingly, Ladi Memorial Foundation started around 2017 in one back remote corner of Kogi State, which happened to be my hometown. And so I think what I saw at that time was it's easy when you are in public office, you go around and then you see needs, and most of them you could address through the instruments of office, and others you could not. But the nature of challenges I found at that time in Kogi State, which I think is mirrored everywhere in Nigeria, is you find people who have gone through a school system and the real outcome of learning is not there.
Okay. They just passed through the school.
Exactly.
The school did not pass through them.
You'll see somebody tell you, I have passed WAEC, and the person really cannot read. The cognitive reasoning and all the what the outcome of education you expect are not there for that person. And then you find again that it becomes also, you begin to talk about incentive. You begin to see the question of attitude. Education is about nature and nurture. So when someone is educated, you expect that the person has the qualities and attributes that sort of impact on their life and make them productive member of the society. The national policy of education perceive that Nigeria's goal for education is to have people who are productive, people who are self-reliant, a country and an economy. So when you find that the average person is not functioning in a capacity that is either employable, even at that level, and like you said, there's so much incentive. So I think at that time we found it is easier to teach people to fish than to give them fish. So we started about that campaign, and we realized how deep this societal challenge is, that people, especially young people, are not necessarily predisposed. In some cultures, encourage them more than others, as you have that. And so we started this campaign about, could we help you learn a skill? And as you would see, and most people would tell you, that incentive that needs to be there for someone to become productive to himself becomes more of a societal thing. So I think over the years we started partnering with organizations. I think one of our very first partner was the Nigerian Society of Engineers, particularly the Association of Women Engineers. And so you find there that you encourage people to acquire skills, connect them with how they will make income from that skills. So we have these first set of people we had trained in 2018 begin to produce uniforms for an entire school. We did that with Upwem a second time in 2019. And then you see that these persons also begin to get confidence, and then they get back there. And so it started our journey. Then we get to discover that the reason education seemed to be more theoretical is because there's no much people supporting the expensive back end of what gives you vocational education. Who provides the equipment? Who provides the fabric the child has to play with, and a whole lot of all that. So it's taking us down this road of over 7 years, now beginning to raise partnership support to say for that child and for that young adult to actually learn these skills, the child and that young adult would have to spend a lot of time and a lot of resources. And then we now came up with this creative way of, rather than reduce wastage, rather than increase wastage, how do you begin to recycle materials into this? So you give me fabric, the students have to learn how to add value to it and make into something wearable, and then you could now pass that out to an end user, whether they come in forms of usable commodities like bags, like headdresses, like shoes, and of course, like the garment clothing itself. And so I think from 2017, we have progressed into different TVETs, technical vocational education solutions targeted at different people. And that has taken us down the road that has led to the National Sewing Championship.
And this year is the 3rd edition.
Yes.
National Sewing Championship 2025, 3rd edition is here. What does it entail?
There was this year, I don't know if you pay attention, sometime in 2022, 2023, there was so much media about a young student who went to South Africa with her peers. And there were insinuations whether she was abused, whether it was consensual sex, and there were a whole lot of reasons as to why young adults were poorly engaged. They have too much time to them. And at that time, we have this school project we still do, we call the Young Entrepreneurs Club, to say, how do you address the gaps you have? Because now a school is in a community, and so the school belongs to the community. And so if you keep the child engaged in the school as a public space, you would begin to strengthen that. The challenge is that in most of our schools, there are no simple home economic workshops. And a simple home economic workshop would have taken care of a catering workshop, or a baking workshop, or a garment workshop. In its very simplest, home economics is mandatory in Nigeria. And home economics is that mother where you begin to have the cradle, you begin to develop every other big artisans that come in, the carpenters and all of them come from that small set. And so we just thought, why not, at the peculiar developmental peculiarities of young people, they like recognition. And so you find incentives. It's if you incentivize a child to go a particular path because of a reward system, because of recognition that goes with that, that child is likely going to take pride in that. The second part again is, the stigma with TVET. A lot of people feel if you go to do carpentry, or you go to do vulcanizer, or a tailor, you are a dullard. Your parents are poor. And so we thought there has to be this initiative that bring the best and the high and mighty. Recognize them as the best skilled people and let them become role models and patrons and champions that others will emulate. And so we came up with this concept and thought, can we move a little away from this mathematics and English competitions that are general? Can we? And then there was this time again, there's this fad about about everybody wants to do coding. I didn't know. I spent a lot of money. I didn't see how that coding ended. And so we thought,
evolution of AI.
Yes, so could we come to basic everyday thing? Like Nigerians would always wear clothes.
Something more practical.
Exactly. And something that is more everyday, you know, in all its form. Like somebody said, if every child in Nigeria school produce a well-made shirt or a well-made jacket, there will still be over 200 million Nigerians customers. And then you begin to see again that among the elites, a lot of people take pride in the fact that their clothes now come from Turkey and Dubai and the tailors and all of that. And then you now find that those people out there, the roadside tailors, the ebukas and the rest of them, you find they don't know enough for them to step up to competing. And then just a few corner of a bar, like everybody would say, imitate a lot of all this. And yet garments making is a $1 trillion sector across the world.
Yeah, that's because everybody puts on a
garment. And Nigerians, we like shakara. You
know? We love fashion.
Exactly. So so dignifying that was a bit of all the ideas that went in here, and said, could we have this youth-focused activity that mops up the extra time the child have, give them something to look forward to every year, and give them something to have a playground where it is no longer politics.
Of course.
It is now skills-based. And we found again that that would also challenge the inborn quality of the person to compete. Because children like to compete with themselves. This time around, it will also bring in national unity. Because what if you can have this vessel that creates a playing ground that everybody everywhere would want to take part of it. So in 2022, we came up with the concepts. And we want to thank UNESCO, because UNESCO Paris saw that and they liked it, and they approved it in 2022 as one of the 5 projects UNESCO is to support under the participation program. And it was piloted in FCT with resounding success. We found it hadn't been like that. And then we had over 1,000 plus contestants. We have the FCT giving support, partnership support at that level. And then we see this rate. And we learned a lot of it from it. Private school people really don't do this. They don't learn most of this. It again goes to the stigmatization. The children of the poor are the ones that are more prone to learning skills to support themselves. But again, we see in the aftermath of 2023, more schools in FCT in 2024 started doing garments making.
Even private schools?
Oh, yes. Because they started setting up workshops and talk about the power of positive image and then the incentive. And possibly it's because in 2023, there was a school award. The best school runs home with 15 sewing equipment.
That's a great
incentive. Set up. Yes. And then interestingly, the winners in 2023 in FCT were all public schools.
Wow.
Yes. So it goes again, and we found that most of those children, even though they contested under under school category, they actually didn't learn garment making. Not all of them learned from school. A lot of them learned from their parents. They learned from outside the school system. And I love the fact that the design we have was developmental milestone, means that we expected to have certain attributes and mental capacity at that level. And so there is no other restriction under the age. So whether you're in school, whether you're out of school, it's a free level playing ground.
But then we have other skills like, you know, cooking, painting, other skills. Why sewing? Why not other skills? Why sewing?
A couple of reasons. Let me start with the first one that gave us the basis for which we have. There's a study that was done by the Federal Ministry of Education. I think sometime in about 2016 or thereabouts, 2018, there's a study. It's one of the last studies that the Federal Ministry did about that time. And the study found that a lot of Nigerians really don't understand the mystery you call technical vocational education. Part of them is because, number one, there are not enough trained teachers in school. And so, number two, people really don't understand welding. what you mean by that, particularly within the school system. So most of these core technical skills within schools are mostly limited to technical schools. And so, but the average child in Nigeria goes to a secondary school. And so when you find out within the secondary school, these ones that are readily available, like you mentioned, are basically the home economics crafts, where everybody can do that. A little of fishery here and there, a little of agric, that schools don't longer have school farms. Craft. A whole lot of all that. And then, but when you get there, the report also said that for home economics, there's a major challenge of water for food-related one. There are storage facility issues. There's also the medium of cooking. How much is gas available? Is it charcoal? You can't bake. And then when you look at the cost of setting up those baking, catering labs, you'll find that the types of tools you will need in baking are very diverse. And so with funding. But then we found a softer ground with garment making. You could sew with a needle.
That's true.
Everybody could use needlework and pass so well. So you see, it's easy to deploy. Again, if you don't even have electricity, the manual sewing machine can do it. Right. And you know, there are different contraptions of sewing machines, whether the one you treadle with your leg and a whole lot of all that. It makes it all the more interesting. But most importantly, is the readily available skill. It's easy to learn. Like we said, everything can be fashion. And so we thought at that level, taxing a child's creativity with something that is commonplace, with something you could, if you don't have fabric, you can convert your sleeping wrapper into gown.
And one thing about fashion is that what looks like fashion to you may not look like fashion to me.
Exactly.
Because we all have different sense of what fashion entails. But fashion is fashion.
True.
As long as the garment is covering your nakedness, you're good to go. All right, now I see the essence of you picking this particular vocational scheme. All right, let's talk about the importance, the relevance of this competition. I want you to itemize it so our viewers can actually have a full comprehension of why this competition is relevant.
Okay. Vocational education, vocational skills, and general education, academicians will argue that they are complementary but yet different.
They work hand in hand.
Yes. In general education, you fill the child with all kind of knowledge the child needs. Information, facts, and figures. A lot of it could be theoretical. The child is in school to pass exam. You see a lot of that in this campaign for I must pass JAM, I must pass WAEC, and a lot of them. But you know, the functionality of education is the fact that you are able to achieve certain goals with education. For instance, if you go across the world, a lot of people will tell you, look at most countries of the world. It is built on blue-collar jobs. It's built on skills. But when you come to Nigeria, you find, and that again is part of the fact I find interesting. The person who's an undergraduate in the university, take away from him what he has learned theoretically and mentally, is left with nothing. And so you find at the end of the day that experts have also established the domain you call psychomotor skill. You know, what you do, you remember. So I found, again, my first degree is mathematics. It will interest you to know that I find, why is it easy for the child out there, the young person who didn't go through school, drop out of school and never even know how to write anything, actually knows a lot more mathematics in the name of tailoring than the person who went to school. And the more you begin to see, I got interested in garment making at when I was in school back there. It was my own elective way back, and I left secondary school in 1993. So you could imagine that. And then I got fascinated with the domain of pattern drafting. Pattern drafting, where you begin to sculpt a garment. You find, and I've seen it in I have one particularly young adult right now who took part of one of our programs. He's been the best leading in his school, private school for that matter, here in Abuja. And technical drawing is one of his best subjects. But he got to understand technical drawing by being part of a post-junior secondary school craft session in our center doing garment making. And then from there, you see the connection, and yes, he's going to be an engineer, and he wants to be an architect and all of that. But it starts with understanding that home economics actually prepares you for that. So the question is, for the child you have now who wants to be a surgeon, do you know that needlework helps the child? become a medical doctor in the future as a surgeon.
Of course.
And so for the child who carries foot needle, in which world do you become a surgeon?
Find it difficult.
So the time you would have learned doing all of this, in the arrangement of crafts from when a child is in basic, is relevant in the sense that whatever your occupational area, whether you are in the housing sector, you're in the engineering sector, you find yourself in any of the sectors you want to find yourself inside, it starts from when the child is there. You see videos from China these days, and you find very babies who are then becoming more comfortable in even doing hairstyling, because in doing military drills, a whole lot of all that. It's the nurturing. So when this idea of this competition comes on board, you are doing a lot much more to somebody. You are creating opportunity to another person. You are giving that child the understanding that tomorrow, support yourself in the university. Without having to wait for money from anybody. You are teaching the child the principle of, I have something to give in exchange. Now, for a girl, to protect the girl child, why does she always have to be taken advantage of all the time?
Because she's a girl.
Because she's a girl. But if she can focus herself, like if you go to Middle East Asia and the rest of them, most of the beaded clothes we have were made by women sitting in their houses with needlework. And so if you ask me, it is part of restoring our lost glory as a people. Because once upon a time, these were commonplace. If you study Nigerians' history of education, when the British and all that come, needlework was commonplace. Knitting was commonplace. It restores the pride of womanhood, if you ask me, in addition to doing a whole lot of all that. So, but that's beyond all of that, is to say that there's so much rebuilding that needs to happen in the society. Connect everybody in a way that becomes very unique.
Okay. So can I be part of this initiative?
Yes. Yes.
All right. So what's the registration procedure like? How do students or non-students register for this initiative?
In fact, we want to thank all states of Nigeria, with the exception of about 5 states. Every state of Nigeria has a focal person. And a bit of what they have done is that forms are everywhere in all the 36 states. We want to say thank you to everybody who has sponsored.
It's not just limited to Abuja.
No, it's
the whole 36 states.
Whole 36
wow,
states. Because in the second edition, 26 states took part of it. We didn't get responses back from about 7 states or 8 states. And this year, those particular states have made responses. So in 2025, we are looking at participation of young people that there are different categories of award, which again speaks to the people who are supporting this. Last year, the Universal Basic Education Commission, UBEC, posted an award for the best in junior secondary school. That was won by Niger State. Yes. And then I think FCT came in second. And the overall champion last year, interestingly, was an out-of-school youth from Adamawa State. 20-year-old, he can speak English.
Wow.
Oh yes, but he could sew. He emerged the overall best. And he said that was his first time leaving Adamawa State to go anywhere, because he randomly just walked into his state offices, pick up a form, and then he filled that, and the state helped coordinate them. And then, like on July 22nd this year, all contestants who are registered will take the first level competition in all the locations in all the 36 states and FCT. Then the winners from there will compete at geopolitical level.
Wow.
Which will come up on August 7th. And then the finalists from all the geopolitical zone would compete in Abuja in a 2 weeks upskilling workshop. And we want to again say thank you to Raw Materials, because the Raw Materials Research Council is sponsoring that particular segment. And I think the geopolitical also is receiving the support of different other stakeholders as we have them. But again, the National Commission for Colleges of Education has posted an award for the best contestants in colleges of education. So across Nigeria, colleges of education are also registering in for that competition.
Now I feel like being part of this competition. But my age is
saying
no. My age is saying no.
Once you cross 22, you have moved out of that category.
And there is no gender segregation.
No gender segregation. Yes. Yes.
But then on a scale of 1 to 10, let's compare the the gender participation as of the previous edition. That between the male and female, which gender participated more in the competition?
Do you know, I was surprised that it was a running race of almost 50-50.
Wow.
None was left behind. Because I remember the young man who came from University of Ilesha. last year is a man. But then you find that the girl who came from Imo State University is a woman. So you would find, so when you look at the states, there was no state that came up with holy men or holy women in the finalists that emerged. And I think it also goes to show that with the right incentive, with the right support, that the average person in Nigeria really want to demonstrate that they can contribute to themselves, and then they can also contribute to their community. And what was the incentive we are riding on? Like I just mentioned, some persons just post an award. I found very interesting that in some states, like their enrollment fee is just 3,000 naira this year. But a couple of Nigerians can't afford that. We've been getting that feedback. A lot of people are interested, particularly in most of them. And it's surprising, but they can. And that's where people come in. Because the fact that a child pays a 3,000 naira registration fee for a garment workshop, it's almost a laugh because 3,000 naira would not even buy the fabric that the child will use.
It doesn't even look feasible to an extent.
Exactly. But that's why, again, it's an NGO project. We are asking for people to donate the resources. Because for that child who struggles to raise the 3,000 naira in some parts of Nigeria, it's even too much, even under the weight. So we've asked the states to give support to their people by giving counterpart contributions to augment the project cost, because that child sitting in this competition, as you could see in some of the pictures, receive a ready-made pack that has to do with fabric, that has to do with scissors and a couple of all that. And if you're going to transfer any of these costs to them, with scissors going for about 1,200 naira, the average child don't. You see this again, that it's a way of also strengthening TVET in schools. When the child enters into this competition, for the past few years, we've had over 1,000 contestants contest every year. And then for this pack we give to them, that has to do with this tailoring pack, they need for school, they need for themselves, they need for practice. You are also contributing to supporting the society. So this is a good corporate social responsibility. A lot of people think the only disadvantaged people in the society are people in orphanages, there are people in hospitals. I think it also calls for a reorientation of our values. But when you donate something to a school, when you donate something to an individual, when you donate for this kind of cause, you see, like every year now we have produced over 1,000 garments ready-made at the end of each of these contributions. So it means that when you produce like raw materials, is talking about donating fabric to the last stage, we need more people to donate to the various levels. And if you look at it, you could be nice to people in your own state. Somebody could support at their own state level. And so it's also an appeal to say, good things happen because there are good people who support these good things that happen. So if you donate in a 3,000 naira, for instance, you may have just given a child a ticket who may emerge the winner. And then, but beyond that, you also need to donate to the project so that the child's 3,000 naira can have value in tangible terms. And so we are reaching out to everybody who's living. Once you are alive and you have a breath there, this is a very good social cause. It augments the funding for education, because at this point you are intervening at individual level. And you can also post an award. Like we just said, in 2023, it's more interesting. In 2025, the third edition, that we have the junior category award. We've appealed to governors to sponsor the state governors award components of it. And then we've seen people like the NCCE supporting an award for the best. We need to see more people sponsor more categories awards.
Talking about sponsors, you have sponsors from the housing sector as well.
African Housing International Show, you gave us this opportunity. So we want to say thank you, because we are also, it's the partnership we are looking for, encouraging people to support. But Footstool Estates deserves another commendation, because we're at this stage where we couldn't send out posters, because last year posters were supported by a particular government agency which has had a change in leadership, and we're waiting for them to respond to us. And while we're waiting there, we have just about 5 weeks to the end of registration. And no school have seen posters other than the sample one. And the states were requesting posters. And we appeal to Footstool Estates. And Footstool Estates gave a partnership contribution of 1.5 million naira.
Wow, just for the posters.
for publicity material. So we
okay.
produce posters, we produce banners, we produce competition rules, guidelines,
Wow.
and all that went to all 36 states.
Wow.
So if you see a poster of the sewing championship anywhere, it's saying thanks to Fustu Estate. But you see, it's just at the beginning because the competitions have not helped.
Yeah, that's true.
We still need the materials between now and the next 1 month. And you know, this is the peak period. Schools will all go on holidays in July.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to see, at least if you can take a section of them and engage them, it still would make a lot of it. So we still need more sponsorship.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Honorable Rosemary Ojochenemi Osikoya.
Thank you.
It was really nice having this interactive session with you. And I really feel I could be part of this, you know, championship competition coming up. But then my age is saying, no, no, no. But you out there, you know, you're within the age of 18 to 20.
12 and 22.
Okay, 12 to 22. You can be part of this national sewing championship 2025. Who knows, you might emerge the winner and go home with 1 million naira and other, you know, other awards I tagged along. So thank you so much for being part of this interview session. I hope you've learned one or two. My name is Confidence Ruben.